I'm going to change gears and move away completely from markets and talk about sugar. That's one sector which, irrespective of what is happening in the world, is at a multi-year high. Sugar prices are at a multi-year high. Will this sustain? Now let's take that conversation forward with Sonjoy Mohanty, DG with ISMA, Atul Chaturvedi, Executive Chairman with Shree Renuka Sugars. Good morning, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Atul, first let's understand that sugar is in a global cycle. Now I can talk about sugar cane demand high in India because of ethanol blending, because of this entire focus on alternative fuel sources. But globally, what is powering the sugar cycle?
In fact, globally also, if you see, Asia has been the biggest culprit in terms of lower cane production this year. India is down by almost, if we take our numbers, we are penciling in a production of about 32.5, which last year was closer to 36. China is down by about another million tons. In fact, Thailand is also down by about roughly 700 to 800,000. And Europe is also not in the pink of health. The only silver lining in all this sugar or cane production in the world is Brazil. But Brazil is struggling because of the continuous wet weather, which is actually hampering production. And the other thing is that Brazil this year has been blessed with a fantastic soya seed crop. In fact, their soya production this year is closer to about 155 to 156 million tons. And the ports in Brazil, they actually prefer soya to sugar, because that's a much easier commodity to handle and probably gives better prices. So with the result that production in Brazil has not taken off big time, though the crop is very big, closer to something like 600 million tons, the world is short of sugar because of the delay in the Brazilian harvest. And India has, in any case, capped its export at 6.2 million tons, which is practically over and done with. So the world is awash and world wants sugar. And the only place which can probably feed the world is Brazil. And at this point of time, Brazil has its own share of problems. So that is what is giving a spike to the international sugar scenario. And a part of that is now also getting translated into India, because Indian values for far too long had remained very, very subdued. Even today, when the values have gone up marginally, we are practically lower than the cost of production and the cost of carry. So I think there's some room still for the prices to move northwards. Yep.
All right. Sonjoy, let's get in your take as well. Would you concur with that assessment of Mr. Chaturvedi in terms of where prices could potentially be headed?
Well, quite clearly, it's absolutely on the right track. Let's step back. The prices of sugar have been depressed. We have the lowest price of sugar in the world. Just to give you a sense, the price in Brazil is at 42, in Thailand is at 48, at EU is at 130, and Bangladesh, our neighboring country, is at 106. So we have seen some increase in the ex-mill prices, which is helping to make the sector a little healthier. But let's just be clear that our prices have been depressed and our prices are lowest in the world. We have been, both associations and the state have been writing to the central government to try and bring in a change in the MSP. This is welcome, but this is really not going the entire distance. Atul did put out that we are still below cost of production, and I'll just give you a few small numbers. The current price of cane is at 33 at 11% recovery. Take a small cost of conversion at pi, that takes us to 38. So even at the current price of right now, let's say an average price of 35 rupees ex-mill in India, we are still below the cost of production.
Right. But Atul, when do you expect an uptick to come by in prices?
It already
Well-
is moving northwards. In fact, once the summer sets in, the demand for beverages definitely picks up. And I'm sure the market is probably sensing that. And coupled with that is that Indian values during the peak crushing period were pretty low, and a lot of sugar got exhausted. So we are now into the lean season, and the only place where sugar is still being crushed is probably UP. As far as Karnataka and Maharashtra is concerned, we suffered from the sudden death syndrome. In fact, we were expecting very good crop, but then suddenly it collapsed because of inclement weather, and then we ultimately landed up with Maharashtra losing more than 2 million tons of sugar, and Karnataka also losing roughly about slightly less than 500,000 tons of sugar. So all those things put together is bound to put a little bit of a pressure on the domestic values. And there's no reason why we should continue to pamper the urban consumer beyond a point. I think in the past also we've seen prices of 38 and 40 selling in the domestic market, ex-mill. So I think government should also be quite comfortable at even 38, 40 rupees levels, ex-mill levels. So that we are hoping should come about in the foreseeable future. Yeah. Back to you.
Mr. Mohanty, I go back to that very basic question, which is that महंगी चीनी is bad inflation. At some point in time, the government of India, which has intervened in rice, which has intervened in wheat, which has also intervened, in steel, could be forced to intervene. While the big picture, what you're saying is absolutely true. Sugarcane shortage, seasonality, food being, sugarcane being diverted for fuel. But ultimately, if sugar prices they go higher, it will sound something which I don't like, you will not like, nobody will like, महंगी चीनी.
Well, let's just see it in full perspective. If the retail price that's held steady for 40 rupees has gone up by 2 rupees to 42, let us see the impact on a domestic household. The average consumption of sugar in a household is about 5 kilos. And if it goes up by 2 rupees, the net impact on the household budget goes up by 10 rupees. It's not significant at all. So we must be absolutely clear that the intervention on price on retail will not be required simply because it has a negligible impact on a household budget. So there's really no cause for worry. And fortunately, we must look at the entire scenario. In India today, we are very well on supplies. So we'll not have a shortage going forward that the prices will increase because of a shortage. And that's an important fact that we should be aware of, that any price rise is not going to be driven because of a shortage syndrome. We have enough supply. In our planning, government has done an excellent thing. From the production that we do, our first allocation is for domestic production. After that, we do diversion for ethanol. These are two priority areas. And only post that do we actually put out any exports.
Okay, Mr. Mohanty, you got a nice little debate going in a studio when you said the number of Indian household consumes 5 kg. You did not quantify. Are you saying that Indian household is consuming 5 kgs of sugar a month? That means we are eating a lot of sugar.
If you take an average household with 5 people, 4 or 5 people, that's 1 kilo a day. And if you see, you split it up in 1 kilo per person, you split that into 30, you consume less than 30 grams of sugar in a day. And if you consume 3 cups of tea across, it's nothing. And it's very, very interesting how if we globally are below world average. Global average is 40 kgs per person annually. We are woefully short. We are at 19 kilos. So it's not anything that's, a number that has to worry. And we all require that bit of energy in a month. to keep us on our feet.
You've got all of us thinking 5 kgs a month is if my family is consuming.
We really need to bring it down.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, oh my God. Okay, Atul, yeah, you want to say something?
No. What I'm saying is if the family is 4 persons, then you'll only consume 4 kgs, not 5. Another nucleus family concept is coming in.
Okay. Atul, but where do you see the sugar capex moving? You know, ultimately it just comes down to the fact that are sugar companies investing more in basic sugar manufacturing capacity, or they will continue to invest more in the ethanol blending capacity, because that's where the visibility is there. You tie in with a government contract, you're locked for multi years, you can plan your capex because the bank will be happy to give you the loan because that capex in a sense has got a backstop because of a government contract.
No, definitely. In fact, the sugar companies are ramping up their ethanol capacities. Even if we take the company I take care of, our capacity used to be about 720 kl per day, which we've ramped up to about 1250 kl per day. So that's because we are punting big time on ethanol, and we feel that the way forward is ethanol. And I go to the extent of saying that we should stop calling this as the sugar industry. It is more an energy industry or energy company. So that is where the actual big money is going in. And as far as ramping up of capacities is concerned, I think that's not happening, because in any case, our capacity utilization is not all that great. For example, in Karnataka and Maharashtra this year, maximum number of days the sugar factories ran was only about 120. So UP may be slightly higher than that. But then when you're running a company factory for only about 120 days, so it doesn't make sense to ramp up the crushing capacity. But definitely if the cane keeps growing, we will definitely have to relook. But maybe then the industries might not run for 120 days. They might actually run for 130, 140. Or like in UP, they run for about 180, 190 days. So I think ramping up of capacity in terms of crushing may not be the way forward, but definitely ethanol is the way forward, and the country needs it big time. In fact, I was reading the minister's statement the other day that this year for 11 months, the import bill for crude is something like US $211 billion. That's a whopping number. So I think the writing on the wall is very, very clear.
All right. It's been a pleasure interacting with you, gentlemen. Thank you so much for giving us an insight as to where sugar prices are headed, the outlook, global factors, and of course, how much sugar we actually consume in an Indian household on average.